Hello, everyone, and welcome to Civil Service Week Public Forum. My name is Debbie Bissoon. This morning, this event is brought to us by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Sector under the theme, The Public Sector, Anchoring Technology for Sustainable Growth and Efficiency. Now, since the establishment of Civil Service Week back in 1992, it has been created to highlighting the work and worth of outstanding civil servants who have given excellent service to central government and to the country on a whole. And more than ever, it is that time that we have to celebrate our quiet giants, as they have been called, because they have managed to pivot in a time of uncertainty in a way that none of us were prepared to do. But they rose to the occasion, and we continue to celebrate them all week long. Now, as part of the Civil Service Week of activities, the CSW Public Forum is aimed at informing participants about the digital transformation of the public sector, particularly since the onset of COVID-19, as well as public-private partnerships in technology. It will seek to highlight impending technological processes that will foster greater efficiency in the delivery of public services. And so, we are very, very happy to be here and to be a part of this. We're encouraging you all to use the hashtags online. It is hashtag CSW2021 and hashtag CSW Forum, and also Anchoring Technology. Use it across your social media platforms because we want the engagement to carry. We want you all to participate. Send your questions. There will be giveaways as well at the end of presentations. And so we want you in tune and participating online. So welcome to those watching us on the MOF website and also via Facebook and YouTube and also Instagram as well. You can follow the platforms at MOF Jamaica. So, to get today started in true Jamaican style, because we always have to invite the presence of the Lord in the place. And to also give us greetings, at this time we welcome Lorna Phillips. She is the Principal Director for Employees Relation Branch at she's also Strategic Human Resources Management Division at the MOFPS. Please make her welcome.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, truly it is an awesome day. Truly, we are grateful that you have given us another chance, Lord, a new page, another day to give you glory and to give you praise. We have come as a group of public sector workers and private sector partners to show how our country has faced the challenges brought on by COVID and how we have been adapting and making changes in the technological space. We commit this morning's activities to you. We commit all the presenters. We pray that all the thoughts will flow and that for all those who are participating, that they will benefit from the interactions here today. Bless us in all things as we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. The advance of technology is based on making it fit in, so that you don't really even notice it. So it's part of everyday life. Bill Gates. Master of Ceremonies, Miss Debbie Bissoon. Minister Marcia Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Mr. Lowenfield Alain, Managing Director, Total Credit Services. Mr. Gary Campbell, Director, Technology, Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. Other ladies and gentlemen, media partners, fellow public servants, and all our friends joining us online, good morning. Today we are indeed living the Civil Service Week theme, the public sector, anchoring technology for sustainable growth and efficiency. This forum is definitely an example of us putting thought into action. That you are joining us online this morning is evidence that we are anchoring technology. The COVID-19 pandemic, if anything, has caused us all to pivot over these past 2 years And notwithstanding the negatives, it has allowed us to see a whole new world via the magic carpet called technology. Today, I'm not one of your presenters, so let me make way for those who will provoke our thoughts and stimulate us into action. On behalf of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and the Planning Committee, a warm welcome to our inaugural public forum.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lorna Phillips, Principal Director, Employees Relation Branch, Strategic Human Resource Management Division inside the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. Ladies and gentlemen, as Ms. Lorna Phillips did say, we are here all together gathered, even though it is online, but it is evident of what we have been asked to do over the past couple of months. It's been, what, over a year? And some months since we've been asked to change course, to pivot. But, as she did say as well, it's all about integrating technology in a way where it feels like it has always been with us. It will, of course, guarantee some amount of efficiency, but it's all about trying to integrate it in a way where it helps us to be even more efficient. That's the aim of the game. So, at this time, with us representing the private sector, I have my next speaker. His name is Lowenfield Elaine. He's the Managing Director for Total Credit Services, a member of the JN Group. And just to give you some information about Mr. Lowenfield, sir, they gave me your whole bio. They told me when you went to Sunday school and which class you were in, what you wanted to be when you grew up. But I'm going to stick with what we have now. So Mr. Elaine and his team provided customer service support to the Ministry of Finance in the early phases of the launch and implementation of the CARE program. And for many of us, we know of the CARE program. We know people who benefited, and even some of us ourselves have benefited from the CARE program. His qualifications are in business administration and professional certification in accounting from the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants. He is also, of course, as I mentioned before, a part of the JN Group, a job he says he absolutely enjoys, and I will leave him to speak further about it. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, put your virtual hands together and let's welcome Mr. Lowenfield Elaine.
And so on. What did people have time to do? They went on and they watched their movies on Netflix. So Netflix increased their share price by over 48% during the pandemic. Apple, the devices market have ballooned because persons need to stay connected. So Apple recorded record sales in Macintosh and iPads and iPhones because people want to stay connected. Over 200 million iPhones were sold in 2020 alone. Then this one is near and dear to me. Disney Plus. The Disney Plus launched in November 2019, and I had the privilege of being one of those persons that supported the launch here in Jamaica. And on day one, we had 10 million subscribers to Disney Plus. Fast forward to March 2021, and Disney Plus is now at 100 million subscribers. Now, I'm just sharing with you how things have evolved in such a short space of time during this whole COVID-19 pandemic. As we move on, I want to talk a little bit about the business process outsourcing industry. And I call it the life vest for a drowning economy. The life vest for a drowning economy. A lot of persons wondered, why was the industry given essential status? We are not doctors, we are not nurses, we are not in the police force and so on. So why was this particular sector given the essential status? And I will share with you in a minute. Some of the things that have happened in the industry since the advent of the pandemic. We've seen a 15% growth in jobs. We moved from 38,400 to 44,000 in just 1 year. We've contributed over $750 million to the economy in just that same period. I want to say thank you. The minister isn't here yet, but I want to say thank you for the government allowing us to have the movement of equipment outside of what we call the special economic zones. Previously, what used to happen is we have to keep our equipment at a registered particular location. Now, the waiver allows us to have persons working from home, which is indeed a benefit. And we could not have realized much of what the things we are seeing here had that not been the case. We have resilience in this industry. Our uptime is in the 90 percentile range. And what do I mean by that? We cannot afford to go down. Can you imagine going into the ATM to withdraw some funds, or you're trying to settle a transaction and so on and so forth, and those things aren't working? It's gonna be chaos. Can you imagine the healthcare and all of these other sectors that we support going down? It's just not going to happen. Can you imagine going onto Amazon to place an order and you aren't able to place that order? I know I don't want to discriminate. I know some people might have a challenge with that, right? So we want to make sure that we stay up at all times. So what we've done is we have redundancies across different ISPs, internet service providers. So we have data redundancy. We have physical redundancies, meaning we operate in multiple locations. We have also vendor redundancy. So a lot of our clients, they don't only operate with one vendor. They have multiple vendors that they can move the volume to. And then we also have redundancy across multiple geos. We have companies that operate in many different areas geographically. Now, we support the banking sector, the healthcare sector, communications, utilities, just to name a few. And we have provided such flexibility, especially in this time when people want to earn a little bit more money. And I wanna assure folks that in time, here's how I envision what's gonna happen when it comes down to this sector. We're gonna have an a la carte in terms of work. So you go home, Debbie, and you say, okay, I would do 2 hours working today, and you just log on and you do your 2 hours and you just log out. And then you say, okay, probably Saturday I'll just do some more hours and I'll just log in and do my hours. That's the kind of flexibility that we offer as far as work is concerned. You don't have to stay married to a 40-hour work week. You have the flexibility. If you're somebody who operates best, you're nocturnal, so you work best between the hours of midnight and 5 and 6 a.m., we can allow you to do that. So you can sleep in the day if you want, and then you can work at nights. Where do you find that kind of flexibility? Nothing. You can find that here in this particular sector. Technology and the pandemic, coming home a little bit. We are able to host meetings such that when persons are engaging in these meetings, we can tell the level of engagement. We can tell whether or not you're paying attention to the presenter. We can tell if you're absorbing the material. Didn't you know that? Yes, we have technology that does that. That's why when we do our virtual training, we can tell who's going to make it from who's not going to make it because of the things that we can track. We also have real-time monitoring of our employees. We can tell if somebody other than the employee is coming to the station to work. We can tell if somebody is looking over your shoulder just by the technology that we are using. So you don't need to worry about the security of moving to work from home because we have cared for all of that. We operate in an environment that we have to have strict compliance. I shared with you the other day, somebody misplaced their computer. And the computer was actually sold to somebody else. And the entity to which the computer belonged to learned that somebody other than the user of the computer was trying to log in. And when they made contact, the person was able to share that they are the ones that bought the computer and they bought it legally. So there was a settlement that had to take place. What's the point that I'm making in this conversation? It is a case that your data is so encrypted and secure that anybody, not any and everybody can get into that data. The other thing I want to assure you, because we had a discussion about credit cards a little while ago, and people are skeptical. Jamaicans are a little bit skeptical about using their credit cards on online platforms. And I'm telling you that there's security that's in place that will allow you to feel even more secure. You don't have to read off your card number to someone. You can just punch it in on the phone, or when you type it into the platform, then that is masked and you won't have to worry about it. But I want to hasten on because I want to talk about Jamaica and what's happening here in Jamaica. I, for the first time, signed up for an app called 7Crave. Anybody know 7Crave? And yes, and I was so impressed. You know that 7Crave don't have a phone line that you can call? You can call them and get anybody. They offer support via chat. And all of their thing is tracked, and they can know exactly where your food is and all of this sort of thing. But I use 7Crave as just an example, and don't kill me all of the other the other players that have come into the industry. Because we have a situation now where the food delivery industry has just skyrocketed. Persons can stay home and order, and you get your meals delivered. Riders are now making more income as a result. So there isn't too much nuisance anymore with the yang-yangs on the road because they're busy doing food delivery. Did you know that? Yeah, I saw one of them even become an artist now. I saw one of them the other day. Now, the banks, I want to pivot. The banks have also saw an increase of online activity. Debbie mentioned that I am employed to Total Credit Services, which is a company that is in the Jamaica National Group. My company handles contact center and debt collection services for the entities that are within the group, and we have an external party as well that we do work for. But we've seen a huge increase in online activity where persons are staying at home and doing their banking online. I've never seen more innovation in terms of technology. You can now get data plans without voice, right? And I know the young people especially, they are ones who I don't know if anybody else has this experience. When you call a young person, it's a big turn off for them. They're asking you why you're calling them. You need to message. You don't need to call, right? And that's the kind of thing that we're now in, where data is a bigger thing than voice. And I've seen the evolution there. All of these have, what I've shared with you, been where technology has had a great impact here during this particular pandemic, and especially in our Jamaican landscape. As I look to wrap up, I'm looking now at the public-private sector partnership. And I'm going to throw up some logos here, and you will recognize some of them. ENDS and CARE and 1881 Love, the JAM COVID-19 app. All of these are platforms that came out of this whole pandemic. And all of these platforms were done via public-private partnership. All of these. And I want to speak a little bit more about CARE. Because the government, the Ministry of Finance, when the pandemic was just upon us, the Ministry of Finance wanted to implement a program. And because of the expediency of getting the program up, they knew that they needed a partner. So they reached out to us in the industry and said, what is it that you can do for us? And we said, don't worry yourself, we are here to the rescue. And what we did is we partnered with the ministry initially on a pro bono basis because we saw this as an opportunity to give back to Jamaica as well, where we handled the contact center for the care program for the first few months. We did so well that the relationship converted from being pro bono to one that, was a paid partnership. But during the period, we were able to quickly mobilize resources. We had folks, because we operating in an environment where we have to be able to mobilize labor quickly. We're coming up to the Christmas season, and I spoke about Amazon earlier. Most persons have already started their Christmas shopping, and more this week because we have Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up. So more people are going to be online. So we have to be flexible in ramping up our staff and then to ramp down when we need to. At the point when the ministry approached us, we had some staff that we were worried about what we were going to do with them. And because of this program, we were able to quickly move them into these roles. So the training was completed relatively quickly. We delivered at particular service levels, and we provided the government with key performance indicators that they can use to see how well we're doing. And I want to big up the eGov, because eGov was the platform that was behind all of the things that were being done. As I look to wrap, as we look to recover from this pandemic, and I share with my clients, the business process outsourcing sector exists for one reason. Now let me tell you. Businesses focus on what they do best, and then we will do the rest. So if you're in the business of manufacturing cars, focus on manufacturing cars. And then I will do the other things for you. Whatever it is that you do, focus on that, and then we will help you with the rest. Focus on your core, and then all of your non-core we can handle. We are very agile. We're very responsive. We have the experts here within the sector. And I'm putting a little plug here. If you want to see your public transportation better, give us a call. And I'm just sharing with you that there are many aspects to this industry that we can invoke efficiency, right? And you can tell me, I won't call any names, but there are some things that after they've been divested, they used to be a challenge, but when they've been divested, they start to operate a lot differently and a lot more profitable. That's the kind of expertise that we want to see. We want to see more legislation that is enacted, which allows greater flexibility in terms of how we operate. And then cybersecurity is going to be one of the biggest things moving forward. We want to invest more in training in cybersecurity, looking at careers in cybersecurity, because as we go more online, then persons want to feel more secure. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you would have learned a little bit more about our partnership and what we have done during this whole COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, I think Mr. Lowenfield deserves another round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lowenfield Alain, Managing Director for Total Credit Services, a member of the JN Group. What a spirited presentation, really right on time, and allowing us to really see the big picture. And I'm very happy that he mentioned that there is no going back to normal. There is a new norm. And so we have to make sure that we're positioning ourselves, we're adapting, we're staying agile to what we are expected to do at this time to keep up with the rest of the world, for advancement, for growth, right? And during this technological era, this whole burst of technology coming on the scenes, we're seeing so many more people now unearthing talents within themselves that they did not know that they had before. And so we have to really and truly stay open to that growth and getting all our team members, the staff members, a part of this transition as well. For the persons who may be more savvy in the area of technology, hold the hand of your fellow staff members and help them over, because this is the new norm. This is the future. This is where we are. And so it benefits the whole if we all can work collaboratively in the same way in which the private sector is supporting the recovery of the public sector and our country on a whole. So thank you so much again, Mr. Elaine, for those words. I do believe we have a question for our online audience, and I know that you all paid close attention to the presentation, so you must be able to answer this very easy question, right? Okay, so the question is, all right, the question is, name the 4 companies that showed growth during the pandemic. Again, that's question 1. Name the 4 companies that showed growth during the pandemic. I would answer the question because I was paying close attention, but you see, I'm not eligible for entry. And so, right, just, yeah. But he mentioned them. They're actually platforms that we do use right now. So just hinting again, please, somebody win it, please. Right. So the second question is, name the partnership between the GOJ and BPO that was launched out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, question 2, name the partnership between the GOJ and BPO that was launched out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Anybody can answer that? Put it right there in the chat and you could win a very special prize courtesy of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. So we're going to be taking a quick break and we're going to be coming right back. I'm going to give you guys like about maybe 5 minutes or less before we get into our next speaker. So continue to have the conversations online. You can debrief all the points made by Mr. Elaine in his presentation, and we'll be with you shortly. Thank you.
So don't touch anything up here, so just back and forth. All right, good. Yes, please. Thank you. Thought they're coming from me.
Okay. 1 second, my friend. So that means my speaker notes won't come up then. My speaker notes at the bottom of the slide won't show.
If you're in the notes section, it shouldn't show.
It shouldn't show. All right. Well, I had a note there, but it's fine. I'll work around it. So, my friend, I'm presenting the mask. Okay. I think I am. Keep it on. Well. All right, while you're at it, is there anything else?
Come with me.
And you see the distance is okay. The distance is okay, right?
Yeah, man, I can read it.
So, yeah, that's right.
So the one to the right goes forward, the one to the left goes back. That's it. That's all I need.
Oh my God. Calm me down when you're ready. And welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. And if you're just joining us, welcome. This is Civil Service Week, the public forum. My name is Debbie Bissoon, and just now you missed an incredible presentation from Mr. Lowenfield Alain, Managing Director of Total Credit Services, a member of the JN Group, or private sector representative, who brought to us some really good information about where we are right now concerning technology and how we've been asked to pivot in just a matter of a year and a couple of months. It has been a really interesting time, and our public service representatives or staff or members, they've been asked to do so much so quickly, and so for sure we wanted to make sure that we're zoning in on how we've been asked to pivot using technology. The theme is the public sector anchoring technology for sustainable growth and efficiency, and my oh my, we have been efficient in anchoring technology. Now, I have a winner. We asked a question earlier on. Even though we still have question 1 outstanding, we don't have a winner yet for that one, but we have a winner for question 2. And just to remind you, question 2 was name the partnership between the GOJ and BPO that was launched out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was, in fact, the CARE program. The winner is Jacqueline Guthrie. Congratulations to you, Jacqueline. I know persons are going to be calling you now, asking you for a piece of the prize. But Jackie, just know that, I was the one who asked you the question. So if anybody is deserving of a piece of the prize, Jackie, look this way, right? Okay. But the question that is still outstanding of an answer is name the 4 companies that showed growth during the pandemic. Mr. Raleigh listed them all at the start of his presentation, so you want to be sure to just kind of revisit that, all right? Also encouraging you all to continue using the hashtags CSW2021, CSW Forum, and Anchoring Technology as well. Now, we move into our second presentation for today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another stellar presentation coming up. I have with us today Mr. Gary Campbell. He is the Director of Technology in the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology, the ministry with portfolio responsibility for Information and Communication Technology, ICT, for Jamaica. Now, let me give you some more information about him because this gentleman has a lot of experience. His experience in ICT spans more than 20 years, and he has conducted extensive work in the areas of ICT strategy, policy, and project management in both the public and private sector. He has done several publications and conference papers on open source software, open data, and open innovation. It is my pleasure to welcome to the podium the Director of Technology in the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology, Mr. Gary Campbell. Please put your virtual hands together.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for that introduction. Good morning, all. I'm here to present to you in my capacity as the Director of Technology in the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. I am looking at the theme, and as I look at the theme, I can't help but feel a little bit excited about how technology has really propelled us to where we are today. So, without further ado, let me get into the matter at hand. Information and communication technologies, we have all heard this term branded about in many quarters. And just to put context to what I'm presenting, it really speaks to anything to do with IT in different industries, the computer hardware, the software, systems and training, the telecommunications industries, whether it be your cell phone, your internet, your cable, the broadcast media, the cable providers, television, and radio. Now, it is definitely an important aspect of life, both in our personal lives and in industry. The government has a role to play in all of this. So private and public sector alike have used ICT in various ways. So ICT national development cannot be overemphasized. And I just want to ensure that at the end of the day, I leave you with a bit of information about how the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology have used, and in some other sense, plan to use ICT to leapfrog the country forward. So the information age and the wide array of ICT-led issues have somehow influenced our nation, the region by extension, and certainly the entire world. What is our mandate? The mandate of the ministry, MSET, really seeks to promote innovation in the ICT sector. So again, we are an enabler. We want to set the stage in such a way that there's fair play. We want to set the stage in such a way that we promote and enable the exploitation of the technology for innovation and certainly economic growth. Streamlining government's ICT operations is also a part of our remit, and we are seeking to make Jamaica a digital society. So there have been several initiatives in this regard. We want to make access to government services far more convenient and efficient as we move forward with the use of technology. Promoting the use of free and open source software is also one of our aims. Now, you would have found that in recent times, the technology has taken us over in some sense because of what's happening with the pandemic, and I'll speak a little bit more to that later on. So clearly, technology development plays a significant role in achieving sustainable development goal targets. So efficiency and effectiveness are two tenets that we have to bear in mind in trying to get this done. So we have to look at ways and means of seeking to end poverty. We want to improve health and education. We want to promote prosperity and well-being by considering how we can make the environment a better one. So the use of technology is far-reaching and I dare say borderless. How has ICT affected the government? Well, we try to use it to be more responsive to our citizens. We try to use it to increase efficiency and certainly to enhance our governance practices. So we encourage the diffusion of ICT through the entire government service. Whether you're doing online services, whether you're pretty much engaging by ways of services offered by private sector, there is a key role for the government. Economies are increasingly dependent on technological knowledge, and certainly Jamaica is no different. So we have to help in any way that we can to sharpen ICT skills, particularly as it relates to moving our country forward. Innovation and the new technologies clearly, I believe all of us would agree, contribute to eradicating poverty by raising living standards. We want to make sure that the underserved areas of the country can benefit from internet. There's a fairly new concept called the Internet of Things, and what we're seeking to do with this kind of approach is to ensure that all devices across all countries are connected using technology. Now, we are cognizant of all of these emerging technologies, and in so doing, we are already contemplating how we can use such technology to detect water contamination, to purify water, to renew energy, to provide electricity in rural areas that are far from the grid systems. Certainly, I could spend quite a bit of time talking about the far-reaching implications of these, but I leave you to read further in literature that we have provided online. So what of the pandemic? It has affected all of our lives in some shape or form. So the government is cognizant of this. So what we're seeking to do is to accelerate public sector transformation. What the pandemic has done, it has certainly fast-tracked some of the things we already had in mind. Things like promoting working from home, remote access to different services. So with the onset of the pandemic, we now find that ICT systems have become more relevant. And so even those who were reluctant to do so find themselves now embracing the technology because of its usefulness in terms of what's happening with the COVID-19. Now, needless to say, the government can no longer solely rely on hard copies. So we are now looking at digitizing a lot of our records. And this, again, is a major project that the government has embarked on. There are some key projects happening. The MyHR Plus, where the government is trying to have one central HR system for the entire public sector. Now, this is huge. This is certainly transformational. And once this is fully rolled out, it simply means that different entities will now have access to online systems, to their personal records, and their personal payroll records, as I said earlier. Now, there's also a project called GovNet, where the government is trying to roll out a government-wide broadband network, where all government entities will be connected. Now, this will lead to seamless movement of information and data across government entities. The benefits of this certainly is far-reaching. One can even start to think of how easy it would be to go to one government entity and that entity can pull your records from another. Something like that certainly is very, 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 very important and useful to a nation. We're also looking at rolling out a national broadband network. Now, this project is very, very important. Why? Think about what's happening with the schools now. Students are at home, but they still need to be at school. This broadband network, however, is supposed to help to ensure that all students will have access to the internet. Consider some of the deep rural areas where internet is not readily available. What of those students? Will they be left behind? We're seeking to ensure that this doesn't happen. So we're trying to put in place now a broadband network to facilitate internet access for all of these schools, not just schools, by the way, police stations, libraries, the municipals, and so on, to ensure that internet access is available. There's also another major project happening, the electronic health records. And this is something that would have been in the public space for a while in recent times. But this is also a very, very useful project, because at the end of the day, can you imagine moving from one health center to another, and no physical records need to follow your track? All that needs to happen is that one center needs to go online, and they can access your entire health records. So again, these are just but some of the projects that the government is looking at that are IC-related. Now, all government entities certainly must play their role in revamping the processes and procedures to make better use of the technology. Clearly, the number one focus should be the customer. How can we better serve the customers? Staff, of course, are important, the internal ones, because they are the ones who will have access to this technology and the equipment to ensure that the innovative nature of it can be realized, and to ensure that they're also comfortable with the use of it to deliver these services in a very effective and efficient manner. So there are some pillars that we are seeking to ensure that all of this happens on. So we talk about some key pillars here. The first of which is the establishment of what we call the ICT Authority, that will provide an integrated approach to digitizing the government services. So this ICT Authority will be a central unit that will manage all the ICT services across government. And this is actually something that's in the making as I speak. So the full rollout of the broadband technology that I mentioned earlier is also another of those pillars. So we want to ensure that the GOJ-wide area network is in place to ensure that all of the services can be then provided on top of that infrastructure. We're also implementing something called a public key infrastructure, PKI, to support digital signature, yes. So we're really moving forward aggressively with the use of technology. And think about it, something like digital signature right now is very, very important given the nature of what the pandemic would have done. The needs, certainly you would have heard of. We're actually looking again at using high security technology at the back end to ensure that your personal data is, well safeguarded and secured. And this is, again, very, very important, because we understand that as we continue to use the technology and become more reliant on it, the issue of security even becomes a more serious one. So we're not, oblivious to that fact. The whole digitization of government records is another of the pillars. We want to ensure that paper-based records will become a thing of the past. And we want to ensure that all records can be accessed or accessible online. In addition, there are some policy and legislative pillars that we would seek to want to use to support all of what I just mentioned. You'd have heard of the Data Protection Act 2020. So that act was passed last year, and we're now seeking to promulgate it by way of setting up what is called a data commissioner. And this is how we intend to implement the different tenets of the act. The data sharing policy is one we have in place as well, which looks at how government entities can better share data sets. The Electronic Transaction Act has been in place for some time. What we're seeking to do now is to revamp it to ensure that it becomes more useful in our present day context. So the ministry as well, through the Universal Service Fund, has implemented many ICT projects to assist the disabled community, and many initiatives have been taken to continue to expand our efforts. So moving into 2022, we intend to continue in this manner. Now, the ministry has several agencies that are affiliated with it, and one such I would have mentioned, the USF Universal Service Fund. A little bit about what they're doing. They have gone out and they have actually invested in network development by expanding broadband coverage through the use of what we call community access points, CAP sites. And this has allowed them to provide public Wi-Fi hotspots. So when you go into some public areas, parks, bus terminals and so on, you'll find that there's Wi-Fi available, free Wi-Fi. This, again, would have been one of the outcomes of the project done by the USF. Now, it is important that we understand and appreciate that what the pandemic has done, it has forced us to propel in a greater manner some of the things we already had in the making. Consider these statistics. At the end of 2019, there are over 317,000 subscribers to fixed broadband. But then look at the mobile component. There are over 1.6 million subscribers to mobile broadband. So what we're saying that we've become so reliant on the technology, we cannot overemphasize how important it is that the policy and governance issues are dealt with effectively. So the ICT authority that I mentioned before, once it comes into place, then it will seek to be that arm of government that will be transformational in terms of IC services and its management. So it's a case where we're trying to sustain our move to become a digital society, to become fully digitized, but we do not want to do this in a manner that is not well structured. So this ICT authority will come into effect and will then ensure that we do this in a very structured manner. I could not end without talking about two very, very important acts that have been passed. The Data Protection Act 2020, I would have mentioned earlier. So we are now on the cusp of a new personal data, and surely you can understand this. We'd have heard of the different breaches of data security and so on around us. So again, clearly, the number one concern with the use of ICT is that of security. So as we become more and more reliant on the technology, we realize that the issues of security need to be taken on in a more serious way. The Cybercrimes Act, which would have been around for some time, so I think the original act came out in 2010. It was then reviewed in 2015. We're now seeking to do yet another review of it. And surely you can understand why. As the technology changes, as it evolves, we have to try to keep up with these cyber criminals because they are becoming more ingenious at what they do. And so we have to ensure that we are trying to stay ahead of them. So the acts have to keep up with them in terms of how we can put in place measures to enforce sanctions that can be put in place for persons who might want to breach any security issue of ICT. Now, I must also add that all the efforts we're making now are not new. All that is happening is that at some point along the way, we have to change our modality, we have to change our methodology, we have to change our approach in order to operationalize some of the things we had in mind. Clearly, the number one risk at hand would have been the issues brought on by the pandemic, and in a sense, some opportunities came out of this. Came out of this in the way that, we now find that a number of things we're trying to do, we had to fast track, and that's not a bad thing. So, as persons always say, out of a crisis, you need to try to find opportunities. We did that, and that's why the broadband network is now becoming a reality. That is why we're looking seriously at how we can put in place a little bit more flexibility in terms of how individuals can perhaps work from home. This is why we're now trying to use the technology in such a way that online services can be even more robust and be of greater significance to individuals. So I will end here and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gary Campbell. I'm sure we have persons in the chat asking the questions. We're going to be taking a few of them. And we have a panel discussion later on, so I'm hoping that you'll stay with us so we can ask those questions. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, please, for that very informative presentation by Mr. Campbell, please. Mr. Gary Campbell, Director of Technology in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. And I'm sure, I don't know about you, but I'm very, very, very excited to hear about what's coming up next because, you know, connectivity has been a pain for a lot of us, even as we adjust to this new normal. And I'm very happy to hear that we are going to be expanding our broadband network and also, of course, implementing the strategies that will carry our health records online and the safety that is also going to be provided, the security for our records that will also be provided in this process as well. And public Wi-Fi hotspots, I don't know about you, but I'm excited to hear that, you know? And I'm hoping it'll be rolled out to all 14 parishes, right? Yes. So if in my home parish of Clarendon, I can be sure that I can go somewhere in Clarendon and be connected still and still be able to do all my work. Wherever we are in this beautiful island, we will be connected for the highest level of efficiency and effectiveness as we continue to pivot to this new norm. So I have a question based on Mr. Campbell's presentation, and I hope that you all were listening in because the question is pretty simple. So the question is, list 4 government ICT-related projects. Again, list 4 government ICT-related projects, and the prize will be awarded to the person with the right answer. And if you are from the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, you are not eligible for entry. Okay, give somebody else a chance. You do this every day, okay? So we're going to give somebody else a chance. Or if you're related to Mr. Campbell, you cannot enter. If he's a cousin, you cannot enter, okay? Please, give somebody else a chance to answer the question. Awesome. We've been having an incredible morning as we learn more about how we have been using technology to make our work lighter, simpler, and integrated in a way where it feels like it's been here forever. And as we continue to adjust to what is our new norm, of course, we know there will be challenges, but we continue to pivot and adjust and stay agile and adaptable as it is required of us to continue showing up as our best selves in our different capacities. Now we will continue the presentations because we have a really great panel discussion coming up later on, and we want you to stay with us. As you can see, we've been giving away prizes to keep your interest, so do not leave because we will continue to have a great program. So, up next, our keynote presentation, ladies and gentlemen, is coming from the Honorable Marcia Smith, MP. And we have a really big bio here for her, Miss Marcia. I hear says a country lady like myself, you know, yes, from the parish of St. Anne. She was educated at institutions such as Westwood High School, Brownstown Community College, and I hear the woo happening over there and online, and also the Norman Manley Law School. She was admitted to practice law in 1997. Her areas of practice include general legal advice, probate, conveyancing, and civil litigation. She has served as a member of the Industrial Disputes Tribunal in the capacity as a deputy chairman from October 2017 to February 2019, and as the chairman from March 2019 to August 2020. She was elected to represent the constituency of Northeast St. Anne in September 2020, and on September 14, 2020, Ms. Smith was appointed Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our keynote speaker, Minister Marcia Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance.
Our moderator, Ms. Debbie Bissoon, Ms. Lorna Phillips, Principal Director, Employee Relations Branch, Strategic Human Resource Management Division of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Mr. Lowenfield Alain, Managing Director of Total Credit Service, Mr. Gary Campbell, Director of Technology, Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. Leaders of our ministries, departments, and agencies, civil servants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Brighter than that. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, that is much better. I am honored to bring this keynote speech on behalf of the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clarke. Due to unforeseen challenges, he's unable to participate in today's forum. He, however, sends his best regards. Our Minister of Finance and the Public Service understands and appreciates the great value added to our nation by the work of dedicated public servants such as yourselves. It is my pleasure today to speak on this particularly important topic, anchoring technology for sustainable growth and efficiency. It is extremely important and relevant for all of us, especially as we continue to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 has caused us to accelerate, as stated by Mr. Campbell just a short while ago, the integration of technology into our working lives, and in a way pushed us to find enhanced ways to continue to deliver public services to Jamaicans. As a country, and specifically as a public sector, we must make better use of technology, and specifically information and communication technologies, ICT. Improvements in technology has marked economic development throughout its history. The steam engine, the telephone. It is no secret that technology is a great enabler of modernization. It is with this certain knowledge that the Public Sector Transformation Program seeks to leverage ICT in transforming how the public sector goes about delivering services to its citizens and internally to itself. We all know that the world around us is always changing. The challenge for any country is to keep pace with those changes as they have a material effect on economic growth and development. Advancements in ICT have enabled investors to make investment decisions where geographical proximity is no longer heavily weighted in the decision-making process. Technologies such as AI, artificial intelligence, and cloud storage have allowed for digital transformation to take place at a faster pace. Introducing technologies into the way we do business helps us to perform more efficiently. Of course, these advancements are not without challenge. One such challenge which goes to the heart of success for any digital transformation is embedding technology into our operations so that we can harness the efficiency that it brings, enabling us to move at a faster pace to sustainable growth and development. I could spend a great deal of time on the topic in and of itself, but I want to focus on two critical elements enabling how we can embed technology into the heart of the operations of the public sector. In other words, how do we ensure that the public sector accepts, embraces, and sustains the use of technology that it needs? I will look at it through the lens of the Public Sector Transformation Program headed by this ministry. Let me hasten to add that while there has been progress over the years, there is still much more for us to do. Today, I will focus on these two areas: creating and enabling a framework for the use of ICT, building capacity and capability to maximize ICT benefits. I'm going to start with the first item, which is the enabling of the framework. As we move towards greater use of ICTs in the public sector to drive productivity and enhance the delivery of public services, there must be an equal, if not faster, move to untangle institutional dynamics to achieve modernization and enable transformation. This is essential if the public sector is to realize the benefits and achieve the potential of emerging technologies. What do I mean by untangling the institutional dynamics? I have an example. The Transformation Implementation Unit of this ministry has been implementing My HR Plus on behalf of the government of Jamaica across the public sector. My HR Plus is an integrated HR and payroll management information system. The system affords the public sector a level of efficiency and effectiveness that will not only improve operations in these two areas, but will also enhance the level of internal customer service and empower managers and employees alike. However, and this is where we get to the part of untangling institutional dynamics, there are some ministries, departments, and agencies that continue to hold on to decades of old processes developed for a system that was paper-based and manual in execution. For example, some entities insist that an approval executed in My HR Plus needs to be printed and signed by ink by a manager and then scanned back to My HR Plus system, even though the capacity for electronic transactions is built into the system. The transformation team has been working through the processes needed to allow for the acceptance of electronic transactions. This will make the approval process for activities such as leave applications simpler and more efficient. We have also been working with MDAs to have auditors access the HR system with the requisite use of privileges instead of requesting printed copies of the records on the system for audit purposes. This is a more efficient way of managing our human resources, as our human resources can be embedded into our culture, become second nature, and among other things, implement the policies that support digital operations. Our records and information management policy must therefore provide for the management of our records and information digitally. The Transformation Implementation Unit continues to spearhead a project to acquire and roll out a work permit management system. This system will allow for the application of a work permit, the virtual submission of relevant documents, and the payment of relevant fees without physically coming into the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. The system provides for a workflow from application to approval with all relevant checks and balances integrated. At this point, I'd like to make reference to what Mr. Alain would have alluded to as to how important it is for the encryption of data on various computers used within organizations and how much security is attendant on that system, which means that persons can be assured that to access a system by virtue of a digital platform in no ways undermines security of the process. This means that the current processes which support the manual application of a work permit will have to be re-engineered to support a digital process, and in doing so, embed the technology and the use of that technology into the operations of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Having processes, procedures, and policies that support and require the use of relevant technology is the first step in anchoring that technology in the public sector as we seek to make our operations more efficient. We do not underestimate the momentous change in mindset that is required to embed technology in our operations. The public sector has been operating in a mostly manual way for a while now, and the seismic shift required to embrace some of the current technology puts many of us in an uncomfortable place. We must make that mental shift if we are to anchor technology to our operations and to take full advantage of the efficiency gains. In recognition of this, a sizable portion of the transformation efforts have been in the area of building the capacity to support the changes required across the various transformation projects and in the wider public sector. The TIU has dedicated a special focus on change management work streams, and 163 public officers have been trained and certified in the PROSIC methodology of change management. Creating the enabling policies, procedures, and processes, along with the support of a wide change management network, are critical to enabling the framework for the anchoring of technology, which will ensure our efficiency gains. I'm going to turn now to the second aspect that I highlighted, which is the building of capacity and capability. Building capacity to maximize the benefits of technology is important. A key outcome of the public sector transformation program is the use of ICT to achieve a more efficient, more cost-effective government. This means that citizens will have a greater access to our public services in more convenient ways, and also greater access to information. All of this goes towards having a more transparent and accountable government. As we click towards eGov, the public sector will generate substantial amounts of data. I know the government has taken steps to regulate to whom data is provided, how it is stored, how it is accessed. But I want to focus on another aspect of data. How do we use the data that we have to aid in making sounder decisions and in informing public policy? We must build the capacity and the capabilities to ensure that the skills required to use today's technologies reposes in the public sector. The management, analysis, visualization of data, these are all very important. The capacity to collaborate seamlessly over a secure network using virtual tools, the development and rollout of apps to access our public services, these are just a few of the skills that will be needed as we move towards a public sector that is anchored in technology. If public sector workers do not have the relevant skills required to operate in a work environment powered by ICT, then embedding technology in our operations will face an uphill task. The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, under the Public Sector Transformation Program, has an upskilling and training project. And this is leading the process of supporting public sector entities that have the need for specialist skills and require that staff be upskilled in this regard. The first batch of public officers were trained 2 years ago in statistical analysis using STATA, S-T-A-T-A. Our next training intervention will be in digital visualization, and we intend to make specialist training available to more public officers. If we are to take advantage of the effectiveness with which we can execute our roles in an ICT environment, we must ensure that the capacity and capabilities are resident in public officers. We must speak the language of technology and walk the path to greater effectiveness in delivery of public services. It is easy to say, I support change, I support transformation. However, that support cannot be passive. We must actively engage and embrace the opportunities to engineer our policies, practices, procedures, and processes to provide the framework that will allow for the effective use of technology, thereby laying the foundation for redefining the way we do things. Equally, we must ensure the capacity and capability exists to harness technology so that we can work smarter and more efficiently. An enabling policy framework buttressed by a robust change management process and a continuous build-out of capacity and capability, taking advantage of ICT is critical to anchoring technology in the public sector. This will allow the public sector to reap permanent gains in efficiency and effectively. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize that innovative technologies will certainly continue to transform the world in which we live, how we do business, and how our customers do business with us. We must therefore embrace and enable the anchoring of the new paths to take hold before us. Thank you.
Oh, come on. Put your hands together once more, please. Minister Marsha Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. Thank you so much, Minister, and please convey our gratitude to the Honorable Nigel Clark, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, for sending able representation. In fact, one of the times when I heard Minister Smith speaking about how we are always saying we are open, we want to see change, we want to see more happening, but have we really been open to adjusting to that? I hear some people inside here saying, You know, when the dad has a good sermon and the pastor says something good, I say, yes, Pastor. Talk to us. Trust me, it was that kind of presentation. So we say thank you so much again to Minister Smith for delivering that really timely and great informative keynote presentation. So we have a winner for the question that I asked earlier on about listing 4 government ICT-related projects. The answers were MyHR Plus, GovNet, National Broadband Project, and Electronic Health Records. And the winner for that question is Donna Brown from Zoom. So congratulations, Donna. And I see, Donna, you have some fans inside here as well. They're going to be calling it Donna, you see? But just remember who asked you the questions again. All right, Donna, thank you so much. And we have another question for you. The question is, and remember you can answer across all the platforms. The first person to answer will win. The question is, what is the mandate of MSET? Again, what is the mandate of MSET? So, those are the questions. Please feel free to answer them. And we want you at this time to give us your questions, because we're going to go right into our panel discussion. And so I'm going to be asking my panelists to join me right here on the platform. And I'm going to be seated in this space right here. So give us about 3 minutes or so, right? So that we can have our panelists mic'd and we're going to be heading right into the panel discussion. So in the interim, I ask that you post your questions inside the comment section, all the questions that you may have regarding the presentation, or if it's not regarding the presentation, but it may just be right up the alley of any one of our presenters, please feel free to ask those questions at this time, and we're going to be with you shortly. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We are here. We're still here, same people, just a different layout. We are here for Civil Service Week Public Forum. We're about to continue our discussions, this time on a panel, of course, with our speakers who joined us earlier on to give their individual presentations. We still do have with us Lowenfield Elaine. Also, we have Mr. Gary Campbell and Minister Marsha Smith. She's a minister in the Ministry of Finance. So, I gave some questions earlier on. I want to make those announcements quickly before we get into the discussions and give the other question. I asked the question earlier on, what is the mandate of MSET? And the answer was to promote innovation in the ICT. And the winner for that question is Olivia McCoy from Facebook. Congratulations, Olivia. I hope you enjoy your prize. And the question that I should be giving you right now, because I don't want at the end of the panel discussion I forget and I have to go home with the prize. So let me give it to you now, right? The question is, which office is responsible for the new work permit and application system? If you can give me that answer, you will win for yourself a wonderful gift basket. Is gift basket we're winning? I believe so. Something nice. You know, any prize from the Ministry of Finance is a good prize, right? I think so too. I think so. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel discussion. First of all, thank you, all three of you, so much for giving us excellent presentations. It is an unprecedented time, and so many people are still adjusting. We are still clueless, some of us, to what this whole new era means for us, and even the future, because we think that we're being left behind, you know? And if it wasn't enough for us to adjust to the new technology, now we hear of things like metaverse. Yes. And what does this mean? Because if I can't adjust in this reality, how am I going to now adjust in a virtual space, fully virtual space? So loads there to consider and adjust to as a developing country. But I want to ask all of you, and you can answer, of course, ladies first, right? In true Westwood style. When it comes to technology, what is the most important lesson you've learned from the COVID-19 pandemic? And how will that lesson shape your decision-making process in the future? Minister.
The lesson that I have learned is that we are a lot more adaptable than we give ourselves credit for. The ease with which persons started conducting their business transactions, such as banking, online, shows that the capacity is there. What we had required all along was a nudge and public education as to how technology does allow for more efficiency in the use of time and resources.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very happy you said that, because sometimes we are very comfortable and we don't like to get uncomfortable, but sometimes the discomfort will put you in a direction that you did not even know that you were able to really perform in. So I'm very happy you mentioned that. Mr. Elaine, same question to you, sir. When it comes to technology, what is the most important lesson that you've learned in this period?
I've learned how adaptable we are as human beings. To think it was just March 2020 that we had this pandemic, it seems like ages ago, and how we've adapted. And we've now adjusted our lives in such a way that I am not too concerned about transitioning from the pandemic because of how much of a good run we've had with the technology during this particular period. As a matter of fact, I'm very excited about what is to come, because we've seen the acceleration of a lot of projects and us moving in the direction that COVID-19 has just bumped us along that road. So I'm pretty excited about what's to come.
Absolutely. Mr. Campbell, sir.
Well, one thing that the pandemic has done, it has certainly brought to the fore the reality of uncertainty. And it therefore means that when we are developing information systems and using technology, we have to be flexible enough to ensure that these systems can somehow, adapt and accommodate the changes that certainly we would not see coming at us. The pandemic certainly has made us realize that flexibility is the order of the day, and if we are not prepared to be flexible enough to change our systems to accommodate these risk elements that might come at us, then we might certainly find ourselves in a more than precarious situation where we can't survive unless we are willing to make the necessary changes to accommodate these uncertainties. So in my mind, that is a reality that really was quite stark.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think about technology, there's a whole generation that was born in a time of technology. They were born in it. Some of us had to adjust to it, but this is a generation that having a tablet from as early as 2 years old was a normal thing.
Yes.
And the technology is not slowing down because, as I mentioned metaverse a while ago, it's like as you got used to one thing, now here comes something else. I know you're hearing about, robots now being implemented in certain spaces, for now working collaboratively with human beings, but for now, because efficiency is the order of the day.
Yes.
How do you see technology, all three of you, I'm going to pose this question to you, how do you see the technology expanding and what does that mean for the generation before the millennials and after the millennials, the Gen Zs as well? Minister, if you would you like to go first again? Yeah.
Ladies first, right?
Yes.
No, how I see the change happening is that I think we're going to enter into a new level of digital inclusion that we have not known before. When there's a change in technology that is transformative, it is usually the wealthiest that get access to this technology first. I think what has happened with COVID-19 is that there has been a greater thrust to have digital inclusion, and I think we're in a period of time where there's going to be greater equity in how persons are able to access technology and to utilize it and adapt it to their own situation, whether it be at a micro, small, medium, or large level.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Elaine?
Right. And I like the answer that the minister gave, because the technology is tearing down those barriers, those social barriers, and even those age barriers that we would normally see. We have a situation now where all persons are equipped to embrace and to utilize the technology regardless of your age, regardless of the era that you're born in, etc. And I am happy that the industries are evolving to support, because I work in an area, contact center environment. We have to evolve the way that we engage the customers, the members, right? And move to where the members are. I spoke earlier with Debbie about debt collections and how we've had to do collections even in this particular period. We have to be very dynamic and get to it. Yes.
He wasn't talking to me about collecting my debts. I just want to make that clear.
Right?
We're just talking about how we've had to adjust.
Yes. Right, David. And that's the thing. Social media is a thing, and social media is not only for leisure. Social media is for business, and that's what we want people to understand. These are just platforms, right? We are evolving the way we engage in terms of how we do business and infusing technology in that particular way. And we're excited about what the future holds.
Yes, for sure we are. Mr. Campbell, sir.
All right, well, one thing is for sure, the technology is here to stay. It's no longer an option. It clearly is our reality. And in seeking to ensure that it becomes all people, we have to guarantee that certainly from the government's standpoint, we bear in mind the needs of the various cadre of individuals who will make use or need for the technology. Certainly, there are some cultural issues. There are persons who will perhaps be a little bit skeptical about doing certain things. I know of individuals who, prior to COVID-19, would not do any form of online banking, for instance. They were just not doing it. They were very traditional in how they do their banking. But then the pandemic, set in, they were forced to do so. And having done so, having been exposed to it, they realized how much easier it is, how much more convenient it is. Right. And so they are more confident in the use of the technology. Certainly one could talk about the use of the internet, for example, the access, affordability. All of these are clear issues which we have to deal with to ensure that there is equity in the use, and that everybody who wants to make use of the technology would have it. So availability is certainly one of the things we have to consider. So again, there are generation gaps. There are individuals who will be more aggressively seeking to use the technology. There are others who might be a little bit more skeptical. But I do believe that in the short term, everybody will be on board, recognizing what the pandemic in particular would have done to us, and seeking to ensure that moving forward, you're in a position where should something similar happen, you will be even a little bit more prepared, because the technology is of such that it certainly is one of those potential issues that can help to ensure that you can still survive as a business, as an individual, you can still live your life in a certain way. And so we cannot overemphasize the importance of paying attention to how it can really help us in our lives generally.
Absolutely. You know, Mr. Campbell, and this is just my question following up from what you said. I remember the other day when it was Instagram and Facebook that crashed.
Yes.
And for many people, we did not know what to do with ourselves because this is unusual. I know people who... WhatsApp as well, right? We did not know what to do with ourselves because, I mean, it was an unusual thing. And for most of us who would be conducting businesses via these platforms, it meant that everything paused. Is it that we're looking for full integration? Maybe, I don't want to go as far as to say dependency on technology, but how do we strike that balance where we're able to, in the event technology fails us for whatever reason, that we're still able to do our jobs effectively as best as possible in that situation? Yeah.
Well, certainly nothing at all is foolproof, and nothing will, no risk of failing. What we should seek to do is to minimize the likelihood of these things happening. So try to make your systems as robust as possible, try to make them as secure as possible. But there's really no way you can fully or completely eliminate the risk of failure. But certainly you can pull out all the stops to ensure that you minimize the likelihood of these things happening. Now consider how long, for example, WhatsApp has been around. And this is perhaps the first time you have had anything of this nature happening. That's like one in how many possible outcomes. So clearly it means that they would have been doing some good things all along. But then there is still the potential of failure. And I'm sure they would have learned from that experience. And so moving forward, something like that repeating itself is quite unlikely. And that is how you have to treat situations such as those.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Lane, we have a question here from online. The question is, what did you find to be the most challenging in your partnership with the government during the projects you mentioned earlier on?
Right. When this CARE program was implemented, we were right at the cusp of moving into the whole work at home, people staying at home, etc. And because the government was so inclusive in terms of this whole initiative, there are folks that were not so savvy in terms of interacting with these platforms. So we found that we had to be sympathetic to that. We had to be very patient with working with persons, but that's what we're trained to do. And I'm happy too, because this was one of the first national initiatives. We tend to, in this space, engage clients that are external and, you know, Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. But this gave us an opportunity to engage with a local entity and for us to serve our Jamaican public. And my employees, they jumped at the opportunity because normally they'll be interacting with folks internationally. This is an opportunity for them to serve their own country. So the biggest challenge would have been the masses adapting and using these various platforms, understanding how the systems work in order to participate in the program. But you know, that was countered by the patience that was exerted by the staff during that period as well.
Okay, all right. Mr. Campbell, we have a question here about data protection, right? So the question says, yes, there is data protection. There is the Data Protection Act, but how can users be confident that this act will protect personal information, being that the pandemic has caused many more people to be using technology and the internet? And we have seen data breaches with big tech companies such as Facebook. So how can we manage that in our small island home here?
All right, thanks for that question. Well, certainly the Data Protection Act, in my mind, was very timely. So it was passed in 2020. Well, the reality is the Act is an attempt to safeguard data, personal data, certainly, and data from a business standpoint as well. But we have to understand that we as individuals also have to take personal responsibility for our data. We can't expect the Act, for instance, to be that particular, element that would completely protect us. We have to consider ourselves of such that we take personal responsibility when we're utilizing devices, when we're utilizing online systems, platforms, and so on. So there's a place for the Act, certainly. So if there's a data breach, then the Act should certainly take effect and ensure that the relevant sanctions are taken. But at the same time, you have to put your mindset of such that you understand and appreciate that as individuals, you too have a role to play. Yes. So one could consider, for example, the whole business of social engineering. The Data Protection Act cannot, in any shape or form, prevent your divulging information, even by way of trickery, to someone else. So that's where you, as an individual, come into play. You have to know, ensure that you understand what you're doing and know when these kinds of issues are coming at you. So, yes, the Act is good. And we do believe that it will play a very significant role in protecting your data. And we understand that data is clearly one of the most significant assets, certainly of individual firms and, of course, citizens as well. But you can't expect the Act to be all things to all people. You have to also take personal responsibility. So.
Absolutely. And I don't know, sir, if you're the right person for me to ask this. This is kind of personal, but are we any closer to digitizing that vaccine card, our COVID-19 vaccine card? I'm asking for a friend.
It's been worked on. I'm not in a position to give a timeline.
Okay.
But given the importance of it, it is being treated with grave urgency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, so I want to ask all three of you about this now. The public-private partnerships, right? Going forward, how do we see public-private partnerships being built out as we move forward into 2022 and beyond? Minister.
Now, there is a strong emphasis from the government on public-private partnerships because within the public sector is an insufficiency of resources to build out all the necessary services that are required. And so it does require the government to work in partnership with our public sector to come together to actually provide and produce these services. So going forward, I do see the government continuing its strong emphasis on harnessing the benefits of the human resources that are found within our private sector, the capital capabilities of our private sector, buttressed, of course, by our very important public service.
Absolutely. And Mr. Elaine, I mean, this is your neck of the woods, so I'm sure
Right.
you also have some wishes for the partnership going forward.
Absolutely. One of the things that challenge me as I navigate is when we interact with different public entities. The challenge for me is the varying levels of service that you receive, across the different entities. And it begs to question, how do we look at that? How do we allow, from the private sector's perspective, how do we allow the government to focus on the things that they do best and then allow us to do the rest, right? That's really what we want to do. And we've demonstrated that throughout this pandemic, that we're here, we're a willing partner. I've named some of the initiatives in my presentation. I would have covered those. But there is much more that we can do to deepen that particular partnership. We are very expeditious in implementing a lot of the things that we implement. And there are areas that we own the expertise in the private sector that the government can tap into. So we look forward to, as we move into the next phase of this pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, to deepen those partnerships so that we can indeed have a better, more prosperous, more brighter future here as Jamaica and Jamaicans.
Yes, yes. And I see Minister there digesting everything that you said. She took note. She's going back to the table for sure. Mr. Campbell, sir.
All right. Public-private partnerships, PPP, certainly there is room and scope for that. And that's been the case for almost forever. Looking at the role of government, it is clear that they have a regulatory role, and they have a stake even in what private sector entities do. So if there are benefits to be garnered from both sides, I see no reason why we shouldn't try to strengthen these kinds of efforts.
Absolutely.
I've seen significant gains for both private and public sector in certain attempts that would have been made in the past. And again, I really see no reason why we shouldn't continue along that vein. So I believe that's something we should seek to strengthen, something we should seek to continue, and even try to ensure that it's a mainstay moving forward, because there are synergies, and there are gains to be had from both sides.
Absolutely. Mr. Campbell, I'm going to stay with you for this question. Somebody online is asking, well, the person wrote, I am excited about the announcement for the initiatives from the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. My question is, what are the specific timelines for the implementation of these initiatives? And just answer it as best as you can, because I know you may not have all the time.
All right. Well,
give us something to look forward to.
Well, let me start with something I consider to be, close to my mind, and I'm passionate about. The broadband network certainly will be done within the short term, and by short term I mean within a year. The GovNet, of course, will be part and parcel of that. The My HR Plus is already happening. So the pilots are happening, and the minister, you could speak more to that if you so desire, because you're right there at the Ministry of Finance. The electronic health record, that's a project that's happening right now, and we're in the procurement process for that. It is a very important one, very significant, and even though it's now just happening, it would have been something we have been thinking about for years. So I certainly would see that happening within the short to medium term. It's a major project, so one would not want to be overly optimistic and say within the short term. So I'd say short to medium term. Did I miss any? Those were the main ones.
Yes, those are the main ones. Right, yes. Right. Your team is saying that's the main one. Minister, would you want to add anything at all? No?
No, as this initiative is being led by MSET, I allow the implementers to give us their timelines.
Good answer. Good answer. Very good answer. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, your virtual hands together, please, for our panelists. Of course, Lowenfield, Elaine, thank you so much for being here with us, Gary Campbell and Minister Marsha Smith. And that concludes our panel discussion. I hope that you learned something from our panelists and our presenters today. Really great information there. Lots to look forward to as we continue to move forward in this digital age. We have the winner for the question that was asked earlier on. Our winner is Marlene Mitchell by the JIS YouTube platform. Congratulations to you, Marlene. And I do believe I have another question here. Which office, was this? No, this is a new question. Which office is responsible for the new work permit and application system? So if you can answer that question, then you'll continue to win great prizes courtesy of the Ministry of Finance. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we wrap things up. So stay with us. Wow, what an incredible morning. Welcome back. We have had such a great morning, great panel discussion, incredible presentations. It's all a part of Civil Service Week Public Forum. Again, we want to say thank you so much to Lowenfield Elaine, Managing Director for Total Credit Services, a member of the JN Group. Want to say thanks to Mr. Gary Campbell, Director of Technology in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. And also thanks to Minister Marsha Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, representing our Honorable Minister Nigel Clark. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us, but I will not be giving the vote of thanks, so hold on, hold a second. I invite to the podium at this time to give us the official vote of thanks, Ms. Shelley-Ann Weeks, Director for Corporate Communications and Public Relations at the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. Please make her welcome.
It's just afternoon. Good afternoon, one and all. And I don't know about you, but I was a student this morning. It's been quite a learning experience for me. And you know, the biggest lesson that I've learned is the government a keep. Yes, plenty things are afoot. So I'm very happy to be here this morning. And before I get into the vote of thanks, I was told before I get on here, so let me get this out of the way, that we have somebody in here celebrating a birthday, Mr. Fabian White. He's a part of our Civil Service Week committee. So wherever you are, big him up online, big him up when you see him in person, and trust me, you're going to see his suit because he came out for his birthday today. He called his tailor and had his tailor represent himself this day on his birthday. So even if it wasn't his birthday, I could have probably guessed because him come out. All right? So I want to tell you a few things that I've learned today just listening to these speakers. I've learned that technology is a part of our lives. I didn't know this long time, but the fact is it's not going anywhere. So if you haven't plugged into the matrix yet, it's about that time. The second thing that I've learned is the public sector is pivoting to ensure sustainability and efficiency. And this is important because a lot of us have seen and we have complained. We go to sometimes we go to office and say, them still I use them printer there. Or then what am I going with them kind of phone there? But the thing is, if you're not upgrading now, you're just going to be left with your own machines that cannot work. So it's about that time. And the public sector is getting the message and they understood the assignment. All right? The thing that I really noticed in the minister's presentation is what she said about capacity building. This is not something that, you know, the public sector is just doing all of these new things, adding all these new technologies, and leaving the staff behind because the staff hasn't upgraded. They're actually investing in the people in the public sector, and that I think is absolutely important. So yes, kudos for that. I'm also very happy to see the public-private partnerships because, let's face it, everything that we need isn't on one side. We all need each other, and as Jamaicans, we all have to play our part. Some of us working in the public sector, and we have to join with the private sector and the entrepreneurs and the creative industry and everybody else because this is our little rock, and we have to all come together and ensure that we do our part to bring us to the next level. And like I said before, buy an extension card, plug in. It's about that time. Because if you're a business person and you're not doing business online, you're missing a whole leap of opportunity and customers. If you are a company and you are not looking beyond just your geographical space to do business, sir, what you doing? Miss, what you... No, you know, I said sir right because women know better. All I'm saying is... Yes, I'm biased towards women. Write that down. So all I'm saying is it is a very interesting time that we live in, and I am personally proud to see that we are embarking on ensuring that we make the necessary changes so that we can continue to not just play in the field, but you know how we do when Jamaicans get involved, everything just spicier and nicer and better and cuter and look better. Because if you see what's going on online, you have a lot of Jamaicans just really using TikTok, all sorts of creative ways. They're using the different technologies and building apps. They're creating solutions to problems, and this thing is only the beginning. So it's about that time. Make sure you get your part and continue the trend. All right? I want to thank some people specifically, and while I thank them, we are going to also present them with a nice little token so they can come at the front here. Mr. Lowenfield Alain, he was the representative this morning from Total Credit Services. You come forward, and which is a JN group, which I'm a member of the JN group, and he's going to be presented with a token by Miss Lorna Phillips. You saw her earlier. She is Director of Employee Relations branch, the Principal Director in the Employees Relations branch at the Ministry of the Finance and Public Service. And I want to just say thank you so much, Mr. Alain. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed his presentation, and he had a lot of very important information to share. So listen, if you missed the presentation before, feel free to go back on YouTube and hit replay, because a lot of important information was shared. Thank you so much, Mr. Alain. The next person that we want to invite to come up with a representative from the Civil Service Week Committee, Ms. Sylvia, in our polka dot. She's going to be presenting Mr. Gary Campbell, Director of Technology at the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. Come up, Mr. Campbell, and Ms. Sylvia. Of course, you know, it was very important for us to ensure that we represented this morning, because, come on, man, look how them go on well. So we have to show our appreciation. Thank you so much, Mr. Campbell. You told me about some projects that's going on that I never know about, so I'll look out for those things. I don't know if I can put a date on the calendar, but I'll be paying attention, because I'm very interested in some of these projects, don't it? Yes, man. I think, well, you asked about the electronic card. Yeah, I'm interested. I was the friend she asked on behalf of, just in case you wondered what happened there. So thank you so much, Mr. Campbell. And Minister Smith, Minister Marsha Smith, you shared some gems in your presentation, and I was very, very happy. Come over a little more, come over. And we're going to invite the gentleman who's celebrating his birthday. I told you about the suit. Come, Mr. Fabian. Tell me if I lying about the suit. Seriously, come out. So Minister Smith's presentation was very, very impactful for me, because I was especially interested, as I mentioned before, about the capacity building, because I think that a lot of the times some companies have great plans for all of these things that they plan to do, and sometimes the human capital gets forgotten. Or do we put the responsibility on the humans to upgrade themselves so that they have to fit into this new world that we're building? So the fact that we are investing in the civil servants is absolutely incredible, and that is something that we should definitely celebrate. And our esteemed host, Debbie, go on nice into the man. Come, Debbie. Now, man, put your virtual hands together for Debbie today. Debbie showed up and she showed out, and she really guided our proceedings nicely here today in our white jacket, which is very, very lovely. White and blue and yellow, thank you. Going with the color scheme of the ministry, well done. And so you're represented today, this morning, and we are very, very happy to present this token to you and on behalf of the team. Now, this forum, this forum will not happen without a lot of different people putting together a whole heap of moving parts, lots of things happening behind the scenes. So I want to say thank you to the team. So right away, I want to say big ups to the Civil Service Week Committee, Ms. Lorna and your team over there at SHRM-D. You have done an amazing job getting us together, getting the information that we need, and we are very, very happy to partner with you. Also want to say a big thank you to the JIS team. Of course, you know, all the people who are looking at me, who's participating virtually, you are doing this because of JIS and their media magic. So thank you very much, JIS, for what it is that you do. This nice stage that you see me on looking all nice and glowy was done by KW Events. KW, y'all represented again. Thank you so much for your work. And of course, I can't do this without support, without my incredible team over there at the ComPR branch at the Ministry of Finance. So big ups to everybody in my branch. Christmas is going to look very nice for all of you. Okay, so as I close, I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in today. I know you have a lot of things going on, but I really hope this was as useful to you as we wanted it to be, because it was very important for us to ensure that we tell you what is going on and also give us a forum for us to celebrate and recognize the different things that the ministry and the GOJ, by extension, is doing to better the lives of Jamaicans. So I want to say thank you for tuning in to all of us today. And while I step away, I just want to remind you that our job as Jamaicans is to ensure that we take care of ourselves and each other. So ensure that you do your part. And thank you so much for tuning in. And Debbie, it's because the jacket can't fit me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the dynamic and energized Shelly Ann Weeks. She loves her job so much, and we love her. Thank you so much again, Shelly, for your vote of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our proceedings, but not the end of Civil Service Weekend. So I would like to just quickly mention a few of the other activities to come. With tomorrow's Long Service Awards supplement published, I believe it's going to be inside the papers. Shelly, is that so? Yes, you can look out for it, please. Also, November 26th, we have the Civil Servant of the Year Award, and then we have the JIS Link Zoom Party. You know, civil servants have fun too, right? Yes, they do. So make sure that you look on out for those activities as well as we continue to acknowledge our civil servants for this week. It has been my pleasure. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us.